That summer turned out to be very revealing for me. Oh, and I really lost my temper over a lying woman. My wife Avery couldn't wait to celebrate her 25th birthday by the sea. We planned to book tickets for July and spend at least a week in a wonderful hotel. However, just 3 weeks before the big day, my boss offered me a lucrative contract, according to which I had to go to another country for at least a month. It's clear that Avery was offended. I suggested that she invite her parents to join her. Her mother, a 45-year-old woman, did not look at all like a pensioner. Ella was very picky about her diet, loved an active lifestyle, and at the age of 20, after the birth of twins, she worked a little with a plastic surgeon. Avery's father, Ethan, had a vasectomy, and they decided that 2 children were more than enough for them. To be honest, I had to adjust my plans on the go. My mother-in-law was able to take time off from work, but my father-in-law couldn't spare a whole week. Ethan acted quickly and settled everything with their mother and daughter so that they would look after his 5-year-old twins. Ethan is a fairly balanced man, despite the fact that he got married very young. He always keeps the situation under control. Both he and his wife work all year round, so they have almost no time to spend with the kids. On the other hand, my Avery is very different from her father. She is more carefree, sometimes maybe even a little irresponsible. Before we got married, she was always on the move. One minute she was here, and the next she was somewhere else. It was the same with her relationship. One guy today, another tomorrow, and 2 more by the end of the week. But in the 2 years that we were together, I never noticed anything suspicious about her. I decided that she had settled down. The instincts of a wife and a future mother must have kicked in. But it seems like I should have been more careful. I took care of all the little details, said my goodbyes to Avery, and headed off to work at the end of June. Every evening, she'd send me photos from the seaside. Some were of her in swimsuits, but mostly they were group shots with her mom and our nieces. From what I could tell, the kids were having the time of their lives. Each day was packed with activities like clowns, entertainers, swimming pools, and escape rooms. On Avery's birthday, I gave her a call first thing in the morning to wish her a happy birthday and tell her how much I missed her. She looked surprised to see me on a video call, almost like she hadn't gone to bed yet. She told me she had eaten some seafood the night before, and her stomach couldn't handle it, so she'd been up all night hovering over the toilet. I knew she'd had issues like that before, but something caught my eye. A bottle of some exotic booze and a few glasses on the table. It was only for a split second before she turned off the camera. Okay, she admitted, we were up all night drinking with Mom. No point hiding it. But still, why were there more glasses than just 2? Now, I already know the answer to that question, but back then, it didn't strike me as odd. When I got home at the beginning of August, I surprised Avery with a big bouquet and a gold necklace. Even though it was late, I still managed to give her a proper birthday gift. Then, by the end of summer, she showed me 2 stripes on a pregnancy test. We agreed to keep it a secret for the time being. Avery started going to the doctor regularly. Pregnant women have some sort of schedule for gynecologist visits. I'd ask if everything was all right, and when the time came, I took her to get some tests done. While she was inside the clinic, I waited in the car. Avery's folder with her gynecological records and other documents was sitting right there on the passenger seat. Out of sheer boredom, I decided to flip through it. At one point, something stopped me in my tracks. The card showed she was 10 weeks along. That's 4 weeks in September, another 4 in August, and 2 in July. So, the date of conception was about the middle of July. I converted weeks into days, and it still turned out to be July 15 to 20. I clearly remembered that I had been abroad all July, and that on July 18th, my wife's birthday, she was at the seaside. I felt a wave of nausea. An unpleasant feeling came to my throat. I decided to stay calm and check everything out. I took a picture of the documents on my phone and put them where I found them. At that time, my mother-in-law was ill. She was worried she might have stomach cancer. She'd been throwing up for days without any clear reason and had started a strict diet, though she didn't stop working. Ella was fraught with anxiety. She dreaded going for tests, fearing a dreadful diagnosis. But Avery managed to persuade her mother to see a doctor. I had to be honest and tell her that the unborn baby needed a grandmother. I decided to support Ella and went to the clinic with her and my father-in-law. While I waited in the hallway, Anthony accompanied her into the office. A few minutes later, a loud scream echoed from behind the door, and my father-in-law burst out, his eyes wide with shock. He staggered down the corridor, clearly distressed. Moments later, my mother-in-law followed, hastily buttoning her blouse. A young woman in a white coat emerged next, trying to explain to Ella that such reactions can be common during menopause and that with 10 weeks already passed, a decision about the pregnancy needed to be made quickly. I caught on to what was happening but decided to seize the opportunity. I asked the young woman for a favor, showed her the photos from my phone, and she examined them closely. After comparing the details, she confirmed there was no doubt. The pregnancy was indeed 10 to 11 weeks along. Now it was my turn to pace the hallway and fume. That evening, my mother-in-law stayed with Avery, and I spent the night with my father-in-law. We drank heavily, trying to drown our sorrows. To say it was rough would be an understatement, but eventually we sobered up and started to talk things through. We were both stuck on the same troubling thought. The timing was too coincidental. I'm sterile, and I was away. The situation was clear as day. What really happened during that seaside trip? It seemed that while 2 married women went away, 2, to put it mildly, women of questionable virtue returned. My father-in-law was furious with his wife. They'd raised 2 children together and now had 2 granddaughters. Yet here they were in this mess. He called his son, starting the conversation in his usual calm manner. Then he mentioned how much he missed the girls and wanted to chat with them. The conversation was long and meandering, as it often is with 5-year-olds. But I could see just how skilled my father-in-law was as a psychologist. He started asking them about their kindergarten, their favorite foods, and gradually steered the conversation to their summer vacation. The girls excitedly shared that, among other things, Captain Jack Sparrow had visited their room. He entertained them with contests and magic tricks, drank colorful mineral water with their aunt and grandmother, and then they played hide and seek. He hid so well that they searched for him for ages, finally finding him in the bathroom with Grandma. Turns out, she'd been the first to discover him and had received a shell as a reward. When it was time for Captain Jack Sparrow to leave, Aunt Avery went to see him off. Meanwhile, I wandered off and ended up getting lost for quite a while. From the point of view of the children, all these adventures had a completely innocent explanation. But Anthony and I knew exactly what was going on. After politely saying goodbye to his granddaughters, the grandfather hung up the phone. Despite the fact that Avery was his daughter, he couldn't resist calling her one very bright word. I'm not prepared to stay with someone who's had a child with another man. She had the nerve to be with someone else and lie to me, whether it was the first time or the 100th. The next day, we went to file for divorce, and that evening we drank to forget. I regret spending nearly 3 years with a woman who didn't respect me. I can only imagine how devastated my father-in-law must be. Avery has nothing to do with the child and is willing to take countless tests to prove it. If the child is born, then my mother-in-law's child will become the brother or sister of my ex-wife. Just thinking about it makes me feel sick. We signed all the papers and went our separate ways. Ethan called me once, saying that Avery was very remorseful, had ended the pregnancy, and was crying all day from loneliness. I don't know if it's true, but to me, she's gone. I was blunt with Ethan, and that's how I feel. I occasionally chat with my father-in-law. He's adjusting to single life, if you can call it that. He's renting an apartment, frequently visiting his beloved granddaughters, and even mentioned meeting a nice widow who he goes out for coffee with. Avery is living with her mother. My whole life is ahead of me, and I've gained a lot of experience. I'm confident I'll find a nice, decent woman. Honestly, I sometimes meet with less than great ones just to keep my skills sharp. I have the right to, after all. I'm a bachelor without any alimony obligations,